Adinkra symbols are one of the many visual languages of Africa. There are hundreds of Adinkra. Each is a unique representation of a facet of life. From textiles to painting, gold weights to the silver screen, Adinkra symbols have made a mark on the arts of Africa. Adinkra symbols are an important marker of community and individual distinction within the arts of Africa and the African diaspora. Adinkra symbols developed alongside Akan languages, which are spoken by communities in West Africa. Adinkra symbols developed primarily in two cultures, the Ashanti in Ghana and the Gaiaman in Côte d'Ivoire. Though the origins of the Adinkra are in West Africa, the symbols have become an important part of Pan-African and African diasporic symbology. Some Adinkra symbols look like their meanings, while others represent meaning through abstract forms. There is no one set meaning for each Adinkra symbol. Rather, each symbol references a collection of ideas, concepts, and proverbs that shift depending on the time and occasion of use. Similarly, most symbols can be represented in several ways. The Adinkra symbol Sankofa is an excellent example. The concept of Sankofa is often represented as a bird, facing forwards and looking backwards with a seed in its mouth. It can also look like an abstract symbol, resembling a heart. Each artist's representation of Sankofa will look slightly different. It can look like this, or this. And in its heart form, it can look like this, or this, or this. Adinkra symbols are most commonly used with textiles. Each Adinkra textile begins with a unique Adinkra stamp. Most stamps are either carved or cast in metal. The stamps are dipped into ink and stamped on the cloth. Typically, Adinkra symbols are stamped in squares or grids, selected for their relevance to the occasion or owner. According to the Ashanti, the Adinkra symbols developed in the early 19th century as an element of the mourning clothing of the Asantehene, who is the Ashanti king. Adinkra symbols developed into an element of Ashanti funerary arts. The Adinkra fabric's color, symbol choices, and cloth usage all mark out the relationships between the user and the deceased. Similarly, Adinkra symbols themselves have been used to distinguish important people and events within the Ashanti community. The Asantehene often bears the symbol of the Adinkrahene, the greatest of all Adinkra symbols. Thus, the Adinkrahene visually reinforces the leadership of the Asantehene. Occasionally, new Adinkra symbols are added to commemorate important events in Ashanti history. This stamp was designed and carved by John Kofi Nisaya. It commemorates the death of Asantehene Otufomo Opko Ware II. Though Adinkra symbols are traditionally stamped on mourning cloth, their use is expanded. Adinkra symbols can be found on everyday clothing, as well as non-stamped fabric forms such as batik and Dutch wax prints. The 20th century saw a wave of changes for the African continent. Two themes are especially relevant in the spread of Adinkra symbols: the call for Pan-African unity and the independence movements which ended colonial domination. The many events within these larger movements helped install Adinkra symbols as a key icon of African and diasporic unity. The Pan-African movement began in the early 20th century. Pan-Africanism is a philosophy that emphasizes the centrality of Africa in past and present life. It encourages the unity of all African nations and people of African descent. Part of the project of Pan-Africanism is to make known that African knowledge is obscured by colonialism. The documentation and use of Adinkra symbols is part of this project. Ghana declared its independence in 1957. As the first African nation to break free of colonial rule, Ghana, and symbols of its cultural heritage, became a major source of hope and inspiration for African nations and the African diaspora. Leaders both inside and outside Africa used Ghana as a model to envision and build an independent, united African community. Traditional arts of Ghana helped articulate that vision. Contemporary leaders looked at the great kingdoms and traditions of Ghana as markers of independent identity. The Adinkra symbols, along with kente cloth, black star, and the colors red, yellow, green, and black, were all important elements in creating an independent Pan-African visual identity. For example, the meaning of the Adinkra symbol, Sankofa, is transformed in a post-independence Pan-African use. Sankofa's proverb translates to go back and fetch it, or go back and retrieve it. Sankofa symbolizes the importance of history, wisdom, and the necessity of remembering historical lessons as one makes decisions in the present. But in a Pan-African context, users invoke Sankofa to communicate the importance of African history and diasporic connection. History now remembers African enslavement and colonization. Acknowledging this legacy informs present-day struggles for freedom and liberation. In a Pan-African context, Sankofa refers to the connectedness of all people to African history. This one little symbol signifies all of these things. While in their traditional use, Adinkra symbols hold fairly standard purposes, contemporary artists have played with the fluid meanings of the Adinkra symbols. Contemporary artists have extended the Adinkra into new media, including painting and filmmaking. As these artists translate the Adinkra into new forms, their meanings shift. Ethiopian filmmaker Haile Gerima made the film Sankofa in 1993. Gerima incorporates the principle of Sankofa into every aspect of the film, from the graphics to the imagery to the narrative itself. Gerima demonstrates the ways in which film can be a fabric for the marks of artistic vision, creative communication, and African knowledge. Ghanaian painter Owusu-ankomah forms his painted figures from Adinkra symbols. In his 2006 piece, Movement No. 5, the figure reaches for a Sankofa symbol. Because the symbol of Sankofa comes with its own complex history, viewers can read this painting in many ways. The figure's gesture can refer to the artist's role as a historian of the African diaspora, the Adinkra as a reminder of history through art, or even the role of Adinkra in making us visible as subjects. With their ever-changing meanings, Adinkra symbols help Africa and its diaspora communicate through art.